Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I do have some great questions I want to get you from the kids, but we're recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott Ridgeland High School and Germantown High School, and for our YouTube channel as well. And thank you for joining us from St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California. And I was telling them before you
Yeah.
came on, 20 blocks from the beach on the Pacific Ocean. But you are from Terry. Went to Terry High School and went to nursing school at Bellingham here in Jackson. So before we get to some of the students' questions, I have a couple as well. But take us through your path to where you got into critical care nursing from high school all the way to where you are now.
Okay, so I actually did some internship. I did externship as well while I was in nursing school, because the field of nursing has several areas. So you can go into labor and delivery, you can go into med surg nursing, and critical care. So everything is busy, as you guys can hear. I'm just getting off my shift and critical care. So there's different areas, and I actually was able to get a feel of every area in nursing, which I actually recommend for any person going into nursing. You know, nursing will take you. There's a plethora of things that you can do in nursing. So what I did was I made sure that, I went into L&D. I did a little bit in labor and delivery, women's health. I did some in actual med surg. And then when I got the critical care, it did excite me because there's always a lot of things that are going on with the patients. And so my heart fell into critical care. And so during school, I made up my mind. That's the area that I wanted to go into. And so after graduation, I applied into multiple critical care areas, and I also was a CNA in at St. Dominic's in their critical care, just to get a feel and to see what I would be getting myself into.
Yeah, and the two things that we talked about with nursing before you came on is that, one, it is portable. And it's not like a doctor where you're stuck in one specialty forever. If you get into something, you want to move into something else. Nursing skills are portable across different fields. And also,
Right.
it's not something you want to do. You don't need to just do it for the money. It's got to be, it's high pace, it's stressful. People's lives are at stake, people's safety is at stake, people's health is at stake. And this was even before COVID. So you gotta put your hands on people. You got to touch stuff. You got to smell stuff. You got to see stuff. You got to see people die. You got to see people born, and everybody has to be safe and healthy through all this. And it is extremely important to know that you have to be perfect on this. And nursing school is not easy. Now, obviously it can be done. Nurses are in high demand across the country, obviously, because you're out there in California, but it is the amount of care that has to be taken for every patient cannot be measured.
Right. And you know what? I would say that with it being portable, you can have a multi-license. I have my license in Mississippi and Louisiana, and, a lot of states offer the multi-license. So, the world is, you can go anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And also another thing we talked about, you said you started out as a CNA, and nursing is one of those things you can kind of progress as you go and work. And while you're working, get more certifications, go to school while you're working full time, get that experience, get paid while you're doing that, and work your way up. Now, and just for, they may not be familiar with all the different levels. Obviously, it goes CNA, LPN, RN, BSN, if I'm not mistaken. So talk a little bit about that, how all that works, and how you can advance and get training while you're on the job.
So CNA is a nurse's assistant, and that is actually a really good way. Yes, you still get paid. It's a really good way to see what nurses do. It's what I started out with. So you do have a LPN, so it's a 2-year degree, and then you have a RN or BSN, a 4-year degree, which is what I did. And both are as equally successful, and so after you become an RN, so both you do have to take what's called the NCLEX, and after you are awarded your degree, you can go into your doctorates. I'm actually in school now to become a nurse practitioner. So, I'll be able to become a provider. And so there are different levels, so what I would have is my master's. So I'm going for my master's degree in nursing.
Yeah, and that's cool that you're able to, while you're working full time, you're able to do that. Every career does not offer that flexibility. And depending on where you work, a lot of the places will pay for you to do that.
Mhm. Yes. So my travel company actually reimburses me for going to school.
That's awesome. Now I do have some great questions I want to get to, but before we get to that, talk a little bit about the nursing program in Belhaven, and how I know you were one of the first classes to graduate there, and it's a newer program, but it's gotten great reviews. It's gotten turned out some great nurses. So talk a little bit about leaving Terry High and then going to Belhaven, because a lot of people don't understand that they do have a nursing program there.
Oh, I love Belhaven because it is a very personal school. Some people prefer private, some people prefer a public school. So Belhaven is a private setting, and you get the personal, relationships with your teachers. And that's one of the things that I really appreciated, because they were there, versus being in a class with 300 people, and there's different preferences for different people. So Belhaven was my choice because I was able to always ask questions and teachers were always there. So my clinical class wasn't a class of 100 people, it was probably a class of like 5 of us in a different group. So I really felt like I was able to grasp, difficult concepts.
Yeah.
And my teachers were always accessible. And that was one of the things that really stood out to me, is that my teachers were accessible and they knew me by name.
Yeah, and again, that's important, just because I know, even just from the outside looking in, the amount of memorization that has to happen with all the body parts,
Mhm.
all the muscles, all the bones, all the drugs, how it affects the body, how they got there. All you have to have all kind of listening and memorization skills. That stuff cannot be messed up on, and it really takes the training to get you there.
Mhm.
Now, and also, how did you get to California? I think the kids are kind of curious about that as well.
So I got to California through my travel agency. And so when I became a travel nurse, you have to have so many years of experience before you're able to travel. And California appealed to me because they are, let me find the right words to say this. They are what's called a union state. And so there are some states in the United States that really vouches for their workers. So if I feel uncomfortable in my job in any way, there are union states that actually support their workers. And that applies to me, even though I'm from Mississippi, while I'm working in California, that applies to me. And so, and through my agency, they really vouch for me wherever I want to go. So if I want to go to, Atlanta, I can go to Atlanta next. If I want to go to Florida, if I want to work in Miami, that's the really appealing thing about travel nursing right now, is that I'm able to see the world while I'm traveling. I'm able to meet new people. I'm able to meet different cultures. Is my background too loud? I could move somewhere that's not as loud.
I hear you fine.
Okay. But so yeah, I'm able to move to different places and just to see, at 3 months at a time, and I'm able to extend my contract. So I've been in Burbank. I've been seeing all kinds of places in California, and I think I'm gonna move on to another state after this contract.
Oh, that's awesome. But then, even if somebody doesn't want to travel, like I was saying before you came on as well, if you're a person that wants to work at night, they need overnight people. If you want to sleep all day and then just work at night, hospitals don't close, so there always has to be somebody there. So it can really work around, once you get your foot in the door. It can really work around what you need as an employee if you have a family. Now, I do want to get to some questions before we run out of time. And some of these are tough, so get ready. And all these are all ninth graders. This first one is the Kyla Nettles. And she asked, what's the hardest part about being in critical care? And do you think that affects how many people get into the area?
I would say, and this is really opinion, the hardest thing about critical care for me is seeing the amount of people that go through difficult situations, emergent situations. So what we call colds, is when patients' health might be failing, and some people like the complexity of these patients. So a lot of them are on the ventilators. A lot of times people compare critical care to what they see on Grey's Anatomy. So you see like, oh my God, the patient's coding, and you kind of see everybody rush in to help the patient. So it's a lot of the and I don't want to say excitement, but it's just the complexity because you do have a lot of things going on. You could probably hear my monitors because we're constantly monitoring patients. And critical care is not just ICU. So you also have people go into emergency, which is also considered critical care. They want to work in the ER. So you do see a lot of the like emergency things in the ER. And then there's different ICUs. So you have like neural ICU, you have cardiac ICU. So you have different ICUs. So that's the most difficult part is one when patients become their health starts to fail, and you have those really crazy times because it can get crazy. And also, we do see the cycle of life, and a lot of it in ICU. You do see people pass away. You do experience that, and we have people that get better and leave. To leave the ICU.
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster of emotions. That'd be tough for me. This is
Mhm.
America Jones, and she asked, "Did you always want to be a nurse, or did you change your mind, or did you change your mind as you moved along?"
Um, she asked, "Did I always want to be a nurse?"
Yes.
So I always wanted to be in the medical field, and what I did a lot of shadowing. So I shadowed some doctors, I shadowed nurses, and like I said, a lot of times it's just depending on what the person likes to do. I chose nursing because they do build a good rapport with the patients. You get to know your patients. It's kind of funny because I'm not putting down doctors, but we talk to the patients the most, and you build those
Absolutely.
relationships.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it's a good feeling because we get to see the patients that leave the ICU who gets better, and it's just a really good feeling that you were a part of, saving their lives.
Yeah. If you're a
Yeah.
social person, it's definitely a good thing to do because you're right. That is, even though the doctors obviously play a very important role, the nurses are the ones who have the rapport with the patients. That's absolutely correct.
And I will say this, not to cut you off, but my grandmother was a nurse. My mom was a nurse. So I had a lot of nurses in my family. My dad was a nurse. I had a lot of nurses in my family that did motivate me to make this decision too.
Oh, and I meant to ask this. I'm sorry. You said you said you talked about a male nurse. Everybody just considers females to be nurses. How many male nurses do you deal with every day?
It's like 50-50. I don't know if you
That's
saw a
awesome.
lot of the people that said hello.
That's awesome.
Half of them were males too. And so, yeah, a lot of people think it's a women's driven
Yeah.
career, but it's not.
Yeah, and there's a need for that because a person may be more comfortable with a guy dealing with their body. That goes back to that patient rapport. Because certain especially a very modest person might not want to deal with a woman especially they're married. They might not want a woman dealing with them like
It
that.
happens all the time. Cultures,
Absolutely,
different cultures.
absolutely.
You have to think about cultures. And like I said, older. You see that a lot in elderly. Modest. Like a little modest Southern ladies. You see that a lot, and they'll ask for a female nurse.
Yeah, and that's extremely important when it comes to somebody's health and comfort. Um, oh, here's a good one. This is Reginald Cooper, and he asked, when you first got into nursing school, did you dread how long it would take for you to finish?
I'm not gonna lie, nursing school, it has its ups, but it's definitely not easy. I did dread how long because you know what, I wanted to make it to the end. So I dreaded how long, those tests. It definitely makes it long, the clinicals, but you do learn a lot. So I think a lot of it was the excitement just to graduate because everybody's like, oh, I'm just ready to graduate. So I think a lot of it was just, I'm just ready to graduate, because you can see the end result. You go to clinicals, you see the role models of who you want to be. So nursing school was definitely tough at certain times. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's not for the faint of heart. Now, this is Leonard Garrett, and he asked, how has being a nurse impacted your life?
Good question. It actually, being a nurse impacted my life actually in the field and out the field, because I know that at the end of every day that you've helped somebody, that you've impacted somebody else's life to live. Um, and a lot of times, our patients will tell us that, hey, I may not tell you this, but you helped me when you did this. It helps me to know that I'm making a difference. For us, yeah, I only see one or two patients, but it just it helps me be an all around person. It helps my humility. I have definitely empathy for a lot of people. You know, it helps me just to be more compassionate. So it helps me not only in the hospital, but just in everyday life.
Yeah. And I've got one more from the students. This is Kawaya Cooper. And she asked, how do you balance your strengths and weaknesses as a nurse?
That's a good question.
Oh, these are all in ninth grade.
These are all good questions. How do I balance my strengths and weaknesses? So, you know, some days during my job, it is tough. And some of my weakness, I'll tell you, one of my weaknesses is that, you know, they say don't carry your, you know, what happens at work home, but I kind of do because I have that heart that, you know, some people just tug on you. And so what I have to do is self-reflection every day. You know, I try to self-reflect what happened, you know, what could I do to be a better nurse, or, you know, kind of what happened during my day. Self-reflection is what I do to balance like my strengths and weaknesses. You know, my strengths, I believe that I'm a leader and I'm a good helper. And then, you know, like I said, my weaknesses, sometimes, you know, you might get impatient, you might get tired, you know, and sometimes you just have to take that moment to take a breather and just take a break, you know. And so also self-help, self-love, you know, and especially after COVID, these times, and even not just for me, but I think everybody should find that time to meditate or take a jog. So I do a lot of exercising, self-reflection, and meditating. So I make sure I take care of myself too. A lot of people forget that because I spend so much time taking care of other people that I forget that I should take care of myself. So
Very
I
easy.
balance that by taking care of me.
Oh, and I almost forgot. I meant to ask this too. You know, say if somebody doesn't want to go through the full nursing degree, what are some of the other jobs at the hospital that are very important that are there?
Good question. Oh, there's respiratory therapists. They manage our ventilators. They are actually a great teammate to nursing. There's phlebotomists. There are perfusionists, you know, so we have these ECMO machines that give oxygen. So they're these big machines that hyperoxygenate our patients. So you have like nurse practitioners. There's all kinds of, you know, like I said, there's CNAs, there are people who are in school that are going through, you know, we have our clinical supervisors. There are different positions in the nurse, well, not the nursing world, but in the medical world that, you know, puts it together. Some people go into school to do like coding and medical billing, like all of those play a part. And even like our clinical managers. So you may not want to be a nurse, but you might want to be in a leadership position, you know, to manage how the hospital is ran. And that's okay too. So everybody doesn't have to be necessarily like a nurse, or they don't have to be a doctor, but you can be, you know, pharmacy. People go into pharmacy. So I have a good friend. She started out as a pharmacy tech and she learned about all of the medications, and so she graduated pharmacy school. So there's also pharmacy. There's the biology. People who like the biology usually go through the lab part, and then and going through our blood bank and our laboratory, you know. So there's different things that you can do.
And then also hospitals have some of the best software people, because that software goes down, y'all are in trouble. So you need
IT.
computer people, you need people to fix the machines.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with all the all that high tech stuff, you know, that's not people that are dealing with patient care, but they're vital to making sure the hospital runs smoothly. So if, you know, if you're a mechanic, a computer person, there's always jobs in the medical field for these people.
Yeah, you could do OR tech, so all of the surgeries. You know, some people like the operating room or pathology. You know, this might be kind of cool to some people, but when, you know, samples get sent to the lab and, you know, pathology looks through those body parts, you know, some people are kind of weird like that. So, you know,
California is where it's at on the research right now. We had a speaker who went to Alcorn that's with Merck in Irvine, and she does cancer research. She never sees patients.
cool.
She's in the lab all day long looking at cancer cells. So there,
Mm-hmm.
California is where it's at in that area of medicine right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot to go. But we're almost out of time. I hate that. You know, first of all, thank you for joining us. I mean, getting up early. I know you're extremely tired and it's early in the morning there. And I'm so proud of you. It's so good to see you. But before we go, everybody that's watching with me right now is a young black kid in Mississippi, just like you were. but yeah, you are living the life, man. It's awesome to see what you've done. So obviously there's great opportunities in this field for anybody. So what
Mhm.
can they do now to overcome the same obstacles that you faced as a young Black woman in Mississippi and in America to become just as successful?
I would say education, education, education. That's something that people can't take away from you. You know, people can always look at your outside appearance, but they cannot take away what you your education. And so you know, and especially in fields like this, you know, you really have to show you don't really have to show how much you know. You just get out there and do the best that you can. It doesn't always have to be nursing, but whatever you want to do, I will always tell, especially, you know, you guys have my heart because you're from where I'm from. Whatever you want to do, put 110% forward because they cannot take your education away from you. And you know, and I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor. You know, nursing school was hard, but now I'm able to see things. You know, I'm planning a trip to Grand Canyon. I think my agency wants to send me to Arizona next, so I'm able to see all of those things, and I'm enjoying now what I worked hard for.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, everything you get, you deserve. So proud of you, and so good to see you. I hope I can see you in person soon.
Oh yes, I'm coming home Thursday.
Okay. Well,
Mhm.
we'll talk later. But again, thank you so much for joining us. We're out of time, and they got to get to their next class. But great information, and I'll send you the video.
Thank you.
All right, see you soon, my friend.
All right.